Hi, my friends. Welcome back again. So, what is today's agenda? In the last video that I have made for you, we have created some API, right? Where I have demonstrated how to use the basic CRUD operation using Postman. Now, if you notice, if you have tried yourself this video yourself, you'll find there's some inconsistencies in it. I'd like to discuss on those inconsistencies, and then I'd also like to extend a little bit more, but I'd like to keep myself contained within Postman also. Okay, so I don't want to go beyond Postman right now. I don't want to be creating dedicated client, which will be discussion for some other lecture. But for this lecture, I'd like to test our API. We first have to fix some glitches that we had in the last video, last tutorial, and also you'd like to test them from Postman. A very good testing from Postman is really important before you actually create the clients. So let me run this. First of all, let me quickly recapitulate that what we have done in the last session. So we have an employee controller, okay, just a regular controller. We are using .NET Core. A regular controller can be used very much for creation of APIs. I've already discussed that. And an API is nothing but a function, a class that is sitting remotely, which can receive your request and can do some processing. If you haven't seen my last video, please go and check that out. Now, uh, you might have seen that I have been calling these API methods like show and save for posting. Posting means to create new resources. Put is to update an existing resource, and delete is for deleting an existing resource. Okay, so that consists of quite the CRUD operation. So let me once again hit a breakpoint here and try to see if the if the get request is working fine or not. For that, I have to be running this server, which is the API server. Running this actually will be opening up a browser because ultimately this is a web application. You know, any API applications ultimately are web applications. So this has to be run. Why? Because we are working with Visual Studio, and Visual Studio has to create a dedicated a client for that. We are using the this Castrol server. However, we can use IIS Express also, but these details can be discussed in some other session. So we have started our server. So that means our API server is ready. So let me hit this Postman and open up the Postman. I've already discussed the importance of Postman in the last session. Postman is just a client which can be used to connect to any API in the world. So yeah, it's a nice testing tool. You can use Fiddler, you can use others also, right? So I like to start from scratch again. I like to create a new collection. So let me create a new blank collection. So that created a new blank collection. And I can either right click here and then say that add a new request, add request, or I can add my first request here, add a request. So that has added up a new request. Now, first is first. From here, please pay full attention. We have so many of HTTP verbs, right? So these are the protocols. These are the protocols. We can call any one of them to do some work in the server. So the first thing is you have to decide the verb to call any API. So we have decided get, and then we have to be putting the actual the API link. In our case, the API link will follow whatever is the base link and then show employee followed by the route parameter, which is employee ID, right? So how can I get the base URL? It's very simple. We have already started it. So that is the base URL. So I'll copy this. I've copied this and I'll minimize it because this is, we don't have to do anything here actually. I'm sorry. We don't have to be doing anything here. This is just fine. So starting this actually has started the server. So this is my server. This guy is my server. The Castrol server. The black screen server is known as Castrol server. We can have real servers like IIS and IIS Expresses also. So let me, and let me paste this basic URL and then exactly type in show employee. I already have something show employee. You know that this API, I mean this backend of this API is actually a fake one. Fake means it actually don't has any data, right? So we will be doing something so that we can have some data. We may not be having the real database stuff, but we will still have some data today, hopefully. So let me see how far it goes. So let me copy this URL. I mean this basic, the basic, what to say, this basic uh, link with the fundamental link. This is a site website link or whatever, and this is where the actual route parameter starts. Okay, the routing information starts. So show employee and 50, click send. As I'm clicking send, you'll find this has hit here, and you see the 50 has come, right? So that means our API is working fine. Our API is working just absolutely fine, and this is waiting for the server to respond. So now I can slowly move in. I think I have hit the continue one more time. I will send one more time. Yep, it hits here, and now I'll slowly move inside by debugging. You can also press F11. You can see that it has a 50 and then it moves inside some kind of status. That if status is false means we have already done this. This is very simple try catch mechanism, try parse mechanism, wherein if the data is a non-numeric data, the status will be returned as false. So we have done this kind of validations here. So the data is good, and then we were checking if the ID is between 1 to 100. Then we will, if it is not between 1 to 100, then we are going to be sending a not found, because we're assuming that the employee ID will be between 1 to 100. So these are like kind of some fake checks. The actual one, the actual database activity will of course be all about to search this particular employee ID in the database. But for now, since we are faking up the data stuff, okay, so we are doing this. We have been doing this from the last session. So let me quickly come inside, and now the random information, a random class was taken and some random department was taken. A new employee object is faked up. Once again, I'm telling you faked up because we are like generating data out of thin air. So okay, it says something. I am going to be, oh my, no, I don't want that feature. Okay, now you see it has initialized all the objects and everything, and now look at it. The basic part of the API, as I discussed the last session, is that you should always be initializing the response. Like this response status code is okay. That means you want this the client to understand that everything went well while trying to search for an employee. And we are saying that we are actually sending an object which has been composed like this. We will be sending two parts of that object: one, a message, which is data found, employee found, and secondly, the actual employee information. So that is what we were doing. And now if you continue, you will see this has got the data. And there is no wonder, we have already discussed it in the last session. I just wanted to repeat it once. So the get is working fine. There is no problem in the get. It says employee found as a message, and then the object has been returned. So this entirely is a JSON, right? So this is what was expected, quite right? Was expected. If I send something wrong, maybe 500, which is quite beyond the limits of 1 to 100, then of course it is once again going to come and hit here, and then it's coming inside. It is status is of course good. That is, status means it is integer information, so status is not false. It's going to come here. However, this will be true this time, and we are going to be creating a fresh new JSON object where the message will be something like this and no object at all. So if we continue, we'll find this information that employee ID was not found, and 500 was not found basically. So that text has come. So that was quite a revision for you. Now let us get into the next step, all about creating a new employee. So now new employee means we have to be supplying a data, supplying an information, which is an employee information. Now what I did the last time is, so I first of all we have first of all you have to be getting into post, but that will be changing this get request. I don't want that. I want to be creating a new request. For that I can click on this, and then I can say that add a new request. Here we go, add request. So that's a fresh request, and now I can change this to post. And then one more time I have to be gathering this main URL, which is this. Need to be pasting it here, and then the actual routing information. Here we have to be calling this employee. Why employee? Because we always have to be doing that. If we have not explicitly set the routing details, then it always comes down to the controller action method, which is the default one. You already know that. So first it gets to the controller, and then controller slash action. That's the default of any MVC controller action. The default route, which has been already been provided into the basic routing infrastructure, which is already here. You know it, of course, right? So it is already there. That's how every controller's action is hit. So yep. So that means we have to be writing employee, and then the save in an usual way. Okay, so let me copy this and come up here. So employee and save. And now comes a very important point. The point is all about how do I supply the data. This is post. That means the data should go in the body. I've already discussed that. Okay. Anything apart from get, the data is actually sent via the body. Definitely we can also send some part of the data in the URL too, but the major data is sent through the body. Now we can come to click the body here. Okay, this here. Now once I click here the body, you'll find many ways of sending data through body. Mind this, pay a very special attention from here. The body, if you want to send data through body, now this is not only true for post, this is also true for even for like put, and even true for others too, but I don't want to confuse you. Just see, if you have body, you have many ways to pass data to the body. Now in the last session I did click the raw. Okay, then I had this JSON. All right, I clicked on the JSON because that is the default thing. Most of the people does this. Okay, so we click on body, and then we click on raw, and then we set the response as JSON. This is by default. Okay, and then we'd like to create a new request. That is, we want to be sending some new JSON data, right? So I hope that you already understand how JSON works. So JSON is nothing but a structured data, which is like this. So I already have it for you. I'll copy this, and I'm going to be pasting this here. Okay, so you can clearly see that this is the raw data, okay, which is in JSON format, and I'm trying to send this data. And now I'm going to be sending this. As I click, I just want to see how it is working, so I definitely need to be setting a breakpoint. And now watch very carefully. Let me click send. It has stopped here. Wonderful. Now watch out for this employee. This is not null, of course, because we have sent some data, right? We have some data, so this is not null. So since this is not null, this will not be null. If it were null, of course it would have sent me a bad request because you have not sent an information. That's how we did it. You can do anything else if you want. Now it will come down to the else part, and it will say, hey, great. So this is again faking up. We are again faking up some kind of response, like mimicking as if the record has been created well. So we are we are setting this HTTP status code to create it and setting it into the status code. So if you do this, and then we are also mimicking uh, an auto-generated employee ID, which is again a fake one, right? Not a real one. And then we are saying, hey, everything went good, and the employee ID that we created is this. Okay, it's 218 is a faked up employee ID. And then we're also showing where this resource can later be found. So this is a part of the protocol. We usually do that. So once a request is created, we also like kind of return in which URL you can find this information. So it's employee show question mark employee ID is equals to auto generated ID, and this will match up with this matchup. And now I did a mistake. I know it. This won't give you the data because later I changed this to a complete routing system here instead of passing to the query string. But we can ignore that one now. I will change it again. But the main concern is, you see, okay, the main concern is if I continue, okay, it rightfully says that, wow, great, employee created 201 and this is 218 and URL is good. So we were happy to see this response the last session, in my last session. But let me tell you, this is incorrect. In fact, no employee record was passed. Let me re-verify this one more time. Let me click it back again. Okay, post save. Let me have the same thing. Click send. You have noticed that we have sent this data, right? Employee ID 50, employee name ABCD, department ID, and some 80,000. Okay. Now look at this. Look at this. You have got nothing here. Nothing. You don't have anything here. So it did create an object, but the object is completely empty. I missed this in the last lecture. My apologies. Okay. So we have missed this. In fact, I thought that is fine because the data is there, so everything is good. But I missed hovering the mouse, and then I didn't watch this, which prompted me to create this video and also some more thing in this today's lecture. So we don't have data. The question is, why don't we have the data? And how can we have data here? Why don't we have data? Well, let me answer you now. Why don't we have data? First, let me continue and it will fall back to the same answer. It will fake up and it will say some ID has been created. Now, why didn't it do? The answer is when we send data like this, all right, that if you look at the header information, you'll find usually they are not visible. This postman doesn't view them by default, so it's hidden. If you click on this, you'll see something right in the top. It says the content type is application JSON. Everything is good. So we are sending data, right? Look at this content type. It's very important. Content type is application JSON. But unfortunately, this data cannot be used directly by this particular function. This is because we have not written something. We have to be saying that we are treating this data like, from from the body of the from body. Yes, we need to mark this from body. Now, once after doing this little small thing, that from body, we need to say this, because if I don't say this from body, this assumes something different. Okay, it will assume this data is not coming from the JSON. So if you write from body, then this API server, this API function will understand that the data is actually coming from the body part. So just doing this little small change, let me run this back again and I'll show you the output again. Okay. So always have to watch for that how exactly what is the content type. And this is something that in the postman you cannot change. Of course, while you are testing from you are using from jQuery, JavaScript, or some other client code, you can definitely change this. But from Postman, you don't change it because this is automatic. I am not able to delete this. You see, this is automatically taken from the body. So it actually watches how you are sending data. Accordingly, this changes. Right. So now, if I okay, now let me click back this sent. It hits here. Now watch out for this. Great, it has data. It has got data. Now you might be having a question that what if I don't write from body and I still want my data to go? Is there any way out doing that? Of course we have. I'll show you. If I don't do any changes here and I still want, let's say somebody has already created the API like this, okay? You cannot tell your API developer friends to change the API according to you, right? Let's say there's a third-party API which doesn't use this JSON capability, right? So how can you now be passing the data? How can you pass the employee information like employee ID, employee name? Just remember these field names: EMP ID, EMP name, DPT, and salary. So there is no way you can pass it through the body and then finding it and then sending it using JSON. What you can do is that you can resort to this x-www-form-url-encoded data. Yes, and then you can pass all of the data using key value pairs. So let me do it one by one. So we had this employee ID. So employee ID, I'll type in employee ID. Let me write anything here, maybe 70. And then the next one, I just don't want to do any mistakes, so I'm copying and pasting stuff. Well, this is employee name, and this is, I can send anything, ABCD, right? And then this is DPT, okay, DPT. This can be anything. I can write sales, okay, and the last is salary. Let me have a value of 50,000. All right. So we got some record, and now this is not by the raw, not from this. Remember, this is not from this now. Even if we have this will be ignored because the body can take any one of this, not all of them, anyone, right? Either form body or this or that, right? So we usually either work with this raw or the x-www form URL encoded or the form data. Now the key difference between these three things, remember we use these three things, okay? Raw is like you can send the JSON data, right? You can also send JavaScript and HTML and other things. This is the most raw stuff, okay? You can send data. Now when you say URL encoded stuff, okay, here you can send data in key pair values, which is much like sending data inside the HTML form field. So if you know HTML form fields, you have, like inside HTML you have got a form. So they are much like, they are like that, okay? So you can send ID, name, department, salary in key pair values. So if you got an HTML form and then if the form contains those fields, then these data can be passed very easily if you use HTTP www form URL encoded format. Now then what is this guy? This guy is a super king of all of these because this guy can send key value and also it can send files. And the structure, the HTTP structure of form data, and this is quite different. This is quite simple. It just sends the data in key pair value. This is very easy. This is much like, something like this. This is much something like this, like let's say EMP ID then equals to something, and then this is much like, like query string parameters, and then EMP name equals to this, right? So this is much like key pair values. Whereas if you are sending data using this form data, you can just Google a little bit, you'll understand the form data. Form data is an extensive thing. It has got starting and beginning and starting and beginning bytes and some kind of like demarcations where the data will end. This is quite different from this. This is a vast way. I mean, when you send it via this form data, you have a larger payload that is sent, right? So we should avoid this only until you are sending. If you think that we are sending, we have to send, apart from the key pair values, we have to be sending some kind of, some kind of binary data, then you must resort to form data. And if you watch something interesting, if you click on this form data and if you go to headers, you'll automatically see that the content type, where is it? The content type, let me wait, extend. The content type, did I miss something? Second, headers, content length. I think something I missed or I deleted the content type or something. But this we will see this content type changing here. If I change, the way to send data in the body, either from raw to HTML URL encoded, and then this, okay. Then if you watch over the headers, then we have a field here. I don't know why this is not showing now. The content type will be changing. Let me run this and see if that changes. So the main thing is, if you use any one of them, you cannot use all of them, any one of them, then the content type, it gets changed, and it clearly reflects the content type, that what kind of body data you are passing, whether you are passing like JSON data, or whether you are passing x-www URL encoded data or the form data. So let me click on this, the form data, x-www URL form data, and then click send. You don't have to worry that why this is still present. I can, if you don't believe, I'll just delete this, okay. In fact, we don't have to be supplying any data, because we'll be using this form, this x-www form URL encoded. So now the data, the content type will be this. So this all other will be ignored. At this time, definitely if I click this send, you will see this has been hit. And now if I hover the mouse cursor, this really shows this. Okay. So that means, so make this as a rule. If your API doesn't receive data properly, or your API has been created like this, then you can definitely send data, but by using the simple key pair values by form data. Okay. So this guy, by using this XHTML URL form data. So that is the thing. Oh, great. It has content type. Yeah, you see now? Yeah, I don't know why that disappeared. So now it is showing content type, this X application oblique X www form URL encoded data. So the rule of thumb is that if you know your API is accepting JSON, then you have to be giving that stuff. Okay, let me stop this again. And then you have to be writing from. It is not form, but from. Okay, from body. You have to be writing. You notice there's from body, from header, right? From query. So you don't have to be writing from query. It is automatic. From query means from the query string parameters. You don't have to do that. If you just send data like this, it automatically takes as query string parameter, because query string parameter takes the maximum priority. If you send some data like this, it will automatically land, and it will automatically land here. So query string parameter gets the maximum priority. So let me get into this form body. Okay, so that is what we want. We want the data to be sent as JSON. We really don't want to be sending data, like individual data like this, because we want the data to be sent inside the body. So therefore we want to resort back to JSON, right? So that was the mistake that I did. Okay, now if I click send, okay, this is not running. So I should be changing the same thing here too. So that was the post. In the put to, the same problem. If you run, you'll find the same problem. So we have to say that this part of the data will be captured from the body, that is from the JSON. And I have not written anything here. That means this part of the data will be captured from the query string, right? You don't have to say anything. This is by default. You don't have to say that from query, right? You don't have to say this. This is automatic. So this gets the data from the query string. However, this has to be getting from the body of it, the raw body in the form of the JSON. So that was the correction. Okay. I hope that you understood. And while correcting you, I have taught you how are the different kinds of, like how may we pass the body under three different uh, like sections, either raw or the simple key pair values or the complex form data. If you're curious about knowing how the form data works, go and Google that. So you can just write that form data, form data, post request. Okay, form data example or form data, what should I say? Form data structure. Yep, you can write form data structure. You will know that how the form data structure works. I don't know whether I can get something here. Form data structure. I should write like this. Wait a second, not like this. I should go to, if I click on this form data, the header will automatically change. I don't know why this is not changing. Let me click send once. I think that will change automatically. Uh, Form data, first of all, headers, and then uh, give me one moment. Getting into the body and getting to the form data. Let me send any data that will activate that in the postman headers. So this is xxx and giving anything u, and then trying to send this. I think the header we will pump. Yep, this multipart form data, correct. You see, it says automatically calculated. You send the thing here and it automatically gets calculated. So this multipart form data, this is all I need to check. Multipart form data. Okay, so if you Google for this multipart form data example, that's it. Yeah, you can go for Stack Overflow. You'll see. Yeah, that is it. Good, great, good example. So multipart form data, when you are sending it like that, every key will be named like this. Let's say name is equal to text1, and then some value will be there, and then it will be having a demarcation where the data is ending. Then again another one, the text2, then some value for it, and then where it is ending. So it actually has a dash 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 dash, and then some demarcation, and then some dash 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 dash, that the demarcation ends. And then all of a sudden you can also have a bigger data. It can be an HTML data, it can be a file data, it can be anything. So just remember this little small stuff is, if you are using, if you really intend to be passing big data, I mean big volume of data, large data, then definitely there is no other option apart from using the form data, right? So we definitely then be using form data. This is the king of all kings. And if you're just wanting to pass simple key value pairs, I mean just simple data, go for this. And if you want to be sending nicely decorated JSON data, you can send this. Let me tell you, this can also be used to send large data too, because you can encode data. If you have a file, you can of course send data using JSON. You can encode it in hexadecimal encoding, and you can send it large data too. All right. So there are two possibilities. Either you can use form data or you can use the raw data. I always find this an excellent option. So I always love to send JSON data and retrieve JSON data. All right. So that was it for today's session. And in the next session, of course, I know I promised in this session itself that I like to create some data for it. So, but since this video went a little long, so I'll be creating some data possibly in the next session for this. Okay, so that this is quite like without any data. Okay, this is like only using some fake data. But we're going to be creating some real data. I'll showing you how exactly we can use some repository pattern to be to just provide data to this particular API, and then we can test it from the postman again. So hope another postman stuff in the next session. Okay. And after that, if time permits, I will definitely like to take you to the journey of how to be accessing these data from different kind of clients, right? So stay connected, stay tuned. Hope you had a great time today, and bye bye, and see you again. Take care. Bye bye.